Right, good morning or good afternoon to the H Radio 223 part-timers. My name is Chris. You've met me now officially over the weekend, and I'm going to be recording two particular videos for this week's or week three's class, right? Um, why there are only two this week is because if you look at lessons, we did up to lesson, let me just count here. So we did up to lesson six, right? Just yesterday, lesson seven is it's a standalone practical based on lessons one to six, which we have covered practical already in class when we looked at the surveys and we looked at possible layouts for a digital AMT, etc., etc. So I think we're covered. And what I want to do in this particular lesson is be able to cover outside broadcasts as well as briefly look at the newsroom. So I've got two videos here for outside broadcasts. I'm going to start off with the class with this guy you can see Moss here. He's going to explain how does a radio station broadcast from a location, in other words, an OB, an outside broadcast. We'll go back to the theory. As we end that, I'm going to play another one, which is an educational video, right? Right up our alley. So here we go. Let's have a look.
Okay, so tomorrow I've got because I'm the technical guy for it. Vocal stand, just in case I need to use it. Room as well. There's a lovely little here as well for me to use on the mixer thing. As well in here are going to be the Rode. Lovely sound as well. And from when I've already filled up my backpack, so it's quite. Maybe I should turn the flash on. So yep. So in here we've got my laptop, couple cables. This nice little bag. It's got its own case. We've got a Movo microphone, lovely, got a little logo on it, in a Behringer's NX1204, which will serve me nicely. It's the one that is without any issues. It's probably not going to be very useful on this Pro as well, which is a handy little recorder that I've got a kind of jack to plug in that Movo mic, interview some people off air, which is quite cool. So yeah, it is the first outside scary, and it's the first time we've done it with this brand new system that we've got as well. We're going to be streaming it over 4G anywhere, which is quite cool. We'll see that in action tomorrow on site. I'm on O2, but I think we can get. Fingers crossed. I'm really nervous. I don't know if you can tell. So I'm going to go upstairs now and revisit some of my plans. Hopefully, I'm going to make sure that I've got all the equipment listed that I've taken. Test in my living room. It looked a bit weird. I'll put a picture up now. But I've already done. I was able to broadcast a 20-minute live show from my living room, which was. I mean, the positive thing. I'm up. I've just taken someone to work. So I'm going to go home, get all the equipment in the car. He's in the car. We are...
A lot of things, I know, but I thought
going through my head.
Fun.
That's the first thing. I do not, unfortunately. Another thing is just that I've got everything. I've checked. Anxiety routine, But yeah, we are heading to location now. It's 8:50 now. Have enough time to fix it. Fingers crossed, a really good first outside broadcast. Let's do it. They want to say my name, but they holding back. So it's going well so far. We've got everything set. Commentators here. You right, Andy? God, yes, it's the mayor. And it's about 10 minutes time, and the match will kick off on the live stream that Orba providing. We're live using this broadcast with this studio via 4G, which is mad. My goodness. That actually of the actual OB had a bit of an issue with the 4G and that went fine. There were only a couple of weird, actually very solid, so thank you very much to broadcast. Brilliant product. I've put everything back away. Next one. Time to breathe. So yeah, that is my...
The intro there. The educational guy will obviously be more thrilling than this, but yeah. Look, what I do take away from this video is obviously just being able to understand that, listen, there's external equipment. This was a very small scaled outside broadcast. And when we talk about outside broadcast, you'll normally think of like seeing one of the big stations with a lot of the equipment out there again, big speakers, a ton of roving mics, depending on who it is that is on the team. If it's a big team like a breakfast or a drive, whatever it may be, then you might have a number of people actually with roving mics that are walking or talking or sitting down and doing talking there. At the main desk where I'm not going to say remote, that sounds terrible, like the roaming desk will also be situated, and there will be a technical person or two or three technical people that are like just ready for anything that could and can go wrong, but also will assist throughout the outside broadcast itself, right? So, just a bit of an introduction, right? And we're so this is the video we're gonna look at next on. I'll keep that aside for 1 second. Just want to load anyway. This is the guy I'm going to chat about. Have chat to us. Don't play, not yet. Okay. All right, stop the share. Let's go to the stop it share and back. Yeah, share the lesson now. Yeah, right. Yeah. See, the lesson is 14 slides long. This is lesson 8 of 84. Okay, lesson 8 of 84. As I said, we skipped over number 7 because that practical we already covered, I think more intensely, or yeah, more intensely in class this past weekend. And so let's move on. Radio 2, module 2.2 of 56, or lesson 8, with a radio technology, part 1 of 6. So we look at next level radio, which is chapter 17.1, introduction to page 248 to 249, introducing the broadcasting chain. So we're going to start there with news itself, right? Just the newsroom. So not news. News will come a lot later on, in terms of being able to compile news, search for news, and citizen journalism, all that fun stuff. Really, it is. I mean, for me, I'm always really interested in news itself. And the obviously the people that go out and do it, and everyone doesn't matter, right? I like news. I like me some news. Page 249 to 251. Let's go to the first slide. Yeah. Okay, so there are obviously two sides to radio technology, or aspects of being able to broadcast radio. So obviously one is the hardware and the other side is the software, right? Okay, so again, you also note that this is, I think you have to, yeah, you have to, not I think I know, but one of the questions in your formative one is about what tools and what devices and whatever it is in terms of hardware and software that you would have to actually list up for an outside broadcast. So pay attention, right? This could be coming up in this lesson. First side, the equipment, the hardware, and then obviously the second one is how does a radio reach the listener through radio waves and audio through the internet, from a mechanical and scientific standpoint. So we've got to think about, like, let's say, what is an ASD line or what is an ISD line? How actually does, for example, if the studio is going to stay where it is as usual, right? They'll open up an ISD line or an ASDL line, depending on whichever order they decide to use, right? And what happens is that the outside broadcast will connect to that there is no other way but via the internet, right? To be able to broadcast that particular outside broadcast, right? And there'll be available software or appropriate software, right, that they'll use for that connection between obviously the I'm gonna say the what did I say now? It was the roaming desk, right? So the desk that moves around, or it could be within a small little bus, so a little combi or whatever it may be. I don't know what they actually call these days, but whether it's combi, right? Almost looks like a taxi, but it's souped up on material. So a little there's a tiny little studio in this combi. It's got probably two mics, maybe three. It's got its own little desk. This for me is more affordable in a long, like if we look at it from a long running perspective, right? Where as opposed to, let's say, individual equipment that other students, not students, studios, like even our own, we use roaming equipment. So we'll bring the desk there, we'll bring the speakers there, we'll bring the mics there, we'll bring obviously the cords. I'm saying the correct cords for connections between, let's say, the speakers and the desk, the mics to the desk. Then obviously like linking an ISD line. The desk has to have power, agree? So we can actually do that, putting up obviously laptops that we are running the playback software in, and obviously again creating that link via other, like, so I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know which part of the software actually does that, or if it's an independent piece of software. I would assume it's independent that creates the link. Like, so for example, I maybe through any desk, excuse me for my pronunciation again, any desk. I should take it nice and slow, like my speech therapist said I should. Any desk. I know that, yeah, I know that I should know this, but it's so there are so many apps out there, genuinely, I'm saying software wise, that can accomplish this, that I'm not too sure as to which ones are more favorable by the stations. There's really like a ton that can do this, this particular simple connection between one PC to another PC that then is broadcast out by and connected to the ISD line, right? So when I say connected to the ISD line in the studio and the desk is then not collaborated, is um what is it when you what's that word, man? I want to say collaborate. No, that's it, right? Uh, but anyway, the thing is that you will now go set that up. Oh my word, how can I not forget? I don't remember that word. Anyway, so you will now and go and set up is maybe the easiest word, right? That particular channel on the desk to link to obviously that particular a PC in the studio that is running that particular obviously simulcast software or whatever it is from the obviously from outside broadcast into the studio, runs back through the IST line and channel, and we keep that channel up, so only one channel is up in the studio, barring should the news be done in studio or the news is being done on site, right? Because then obviously we'll have different channels that are up in the studio, but otherwise only the ISDN line is needed to be up and switched on in the studio and on the desk, right? Once again, just to kind of like recap, that ISDN line is not programmed but set up to connect to software that is obviously it's installed on a certain PC. That PC is then uh like you would do with any desk, you can log into, right, or be able to connect to, so collaborate and remotely connect to the other PC now that is sitting on the other side, the outside broadcast, that is connected, right, to the actual broadcast itself, right? So there's obviously wiring from again, as I say, the mics, the playback systems on the PC itself, the speakers are to the desk. So the desk is connected to that particular laptop. Laptop obviously signs it out or sends it out to the studio. Okay. Anyway, so the second side is obviously the how radio professionals use modern software and computer program or programs in conjunction with the studio to utilize the broadcast equipment to enhance their programming delivery and enrich their shows, which is exactly what I said. There'll be playback software, the same playback software that we obviously use, right? But then there's also additional software that does connect the two sides together, right? So studio, and again the the remote or the outside broadcast side, right? So I'm just putting this up here. Okay. So let's look at the chain. So we refer to the series of connections between the systems where the content is obviously located, the transmission point of that content, so that the place that we are holding the outside broadcast at, and the signal distribution points that come in and out of the broadcast studio. So the ISDN lines, right? There we go. So the input links, so we bring content into the studio, telephone lines. Obviously we have to use the internet. We have an ICN line for OBs and ADSL line for OBs, right? As well. The difference between the two is marginal. I don't need to, when I say marginal, not much of a difference, right? Just different, obviously, functionalities, so I won't go into what each one of them really are used for. Okay, output links to transmit the content out to the listening audience. So telephone lines, internet lines for the streaming, right? Satellite links, and then FM signals that are caught and routed by an FM transmitter, which we use. Well, the station runs on every single day, right? And throughout each day. Here we go. Here's a little bit of a picture from your book. Right, telephone lines over here, internet lines over there, remote studio lines over there. Here's the studio and the desk itself here, and it goes out here. So what do we have is external links, right? That provide for more so the output, right? Satellite links, telephone links, internet-based links, broadcast links, and obviously the FM transmitter that is external. And again, hands over to. If we look at a simplified diagram with no labeling here, it's exactly what we saw here, right? You can actually just in picture form or icon form, analog signals will sit with a black, right? So you see here, obviously to speakers, to our mic, our earphones, our mics, and our telephone lines, whereas digital signals are sitting at maybe it's a backup, like it's a backup or a playback, external playback system. Obviously, the computer is digital as well as satellite is obviously digital then as well. How does this work again? So permanent studio, right? The one that's where we do everyday radio, right? And the remote. So in other words, the one that actually moves around. So when I say portable to make it a bit more like it makes more sense, but remote just means it's somewhere else. So somewhere else, situated somewhere else. Okay. So remote studio connects with the permanent studio on air studio, right? Permanent on air studio, which is constantly in use, always, right? Remote studio is the main site for all live broadcast activity, right? When required, having access to remote studios help radio stations to manage the delivery of a radio show, regardless of where the on-air presenter may be. So outside broadcasts are less like physical studios spaces and more like pop-up mobile studios. As you know, they could look something like this. That's a bit lazy. Look at that. Man, I must stand up and do your show. And also here's but I don't know, doing a coffee shop, like, and there could be many people there, whatever it is. You obviously got to check out for background noise, etc., etc. But that is what it looks like. So we have our desks on either side. Again, like you saw in the video, simplified mics, maybe one mic obviously connected to the desk or two mics connected to the desk. These are channels over there that will be allocated, maybe one, mic two, PC over here, and then ISDN inline over there. That one probably is the ISDN line or the ASDL line, right? Which then will connect obviously and allow us to transmit over to using again software because there is no think of it, there's no cable that goes from here to the station, right? Obviously. So we're using applications as well as the web and satellite, etc. Okay. Well, actually, the satellite goes out to our listeners, so we're not confuse things, right? Okay, obviously a little bit of Mike there. There's your presenter. This is what the 5FM team looked like when they were doing outside broadcasts during COVID, right? So, which was kind of, I suppose, it was smart. I mean, do it outside. It's a bit more, obviously outside spaces during COVID were a bit more COVID friendly, right? And then you can obviously see that there's a bit of a team at the presenters, news presenters. I know her. I think she's a news presenter. I've met her at many movie premieres when we have to go and do like reviews and stuff. Anyway, I know her. Anyway, so them I don't know. But yeah, as I said, there's obviously the host presenter. That could be Nick Hammond back in the day, who knows? All right, different news and sports sitting here, and then here we go, obviously technical and producers, right? Okay. All right. Here's the newsroom. I'm going to stop for a moment so I can go to the actual video of one, which is an educational video. Stop here. Just share there for a second. Here we go.
Hello. Today we're going to be looking at outside broadcasting. With the help of some professionals, we're going to be answering the questions: what is an outside broadcast? Who is involved in outside broadcasting? And what does it all mean? Firstly, what is an outside broadcast? The definition of an outside broadcast is the production of a television or radio program from outside of the studio. Outside broadcasts are most commonly used for covering news, live sport or live music events. Now that we know what an outside broadcast is, we can look into what goes into making it all work. So what is involved in an outside broadcast? As an outside broadcast is filmed externally outside of a TV studio, a mobile production gallery is needed for the gallery crew to produce the show from. This is known as an outside broadcast truck and come in all shapes and sizes depending on the size of the production. In order to transmit the output program back to the main TV station, an SNG truck is needed. This sends the signal via a satellite to the MCR in the TV station. Then the program is then sent to TX before being sent back to MCR. Here it is uplinked and broadcast by the satellites on the roof. The signal is then downlinked at people's homes where it can be watched on the TV. So now we've covered the basic signal part of an outside broadcast, let's get some deeper insight and hear from some professionals. So what is an SNG truck?
Well, SNG stands for Satellite News Gathering, and that means a way of getting the news and broadcasting it over satellite back to a studio. And it was devised so people could go to breaking news stories and be able to get the audio and video information back to the studio as fast as possible. The purpose of an SNG truck is to take signal from a camera or an outside broadcast truck and be able to deliver that signal onto a satellite. And that signal will be audio and video. So it comes into this truck and we use the various equipment behind me to monitor the signal, and then we send it into our satellite encoders, which turn that baseband video and audio signal into an RF signal, which is then sent out through some big amplifiers and through the antenna on the roof. From here that signal goes to somewhere like an MCR, a master control room, with earth station dishes, the big dishes, and that will pull the signal down, and then that signal will be back in its original baseband state, so the original audio and video that came out of a camera or an outside broadcasting truck.
So as John said, the signal is sent from the SNG truck from on top of the antenna on the roof to the MCR back at the TV station. So now let's ask another professional, what happens in the MCR?
So this is the MCR, or main control room, and this room has the responsibility for managing all the feeds that come in and out of the building. Every piece of pictures and sound and footage is managed here. The people who work here, such as myself, we are actually doing things such as tuning in satellite feeds, making recordings onto tape, onto disc, and preparing programs and break items for broadcast. The output of the transmission suite comes through this room where I said all the feeds are managed, and then it gets sent out of the building and to a third party, for example, such as Arqiva in Winchester, who will then uplink that onto satellite. For a viewer at home, for example, somebody with Sky, they will then be downlinking those pictures from the satellite that have been uplinked by the broadcaster.
As Gideon said, the MCR is one of the most important buildings in the whole broadcasting process, as it downlinks and uplinks signals. Before it can be broadcasted, however, the signal has to be sent to TX.
Standing by with a 109 break.
TX is just an abbreviation for transmission, and it is here in the transmission suite that the commercial breaks and extra graphics are added to the program. A TX operator has the important job of communicating with a lot of people and ensuring that programs run on and off air as scheduled. So the output of the transmission suite goes back to the MCR, where it is broadcasted by the satellites. So that's all the technical stuff out of the way. But what about how does a TV program get produced? Let's talk to our final professional, a producer at British Eurosport in London, who can help us answer our final question. What are the roles and responsibilities of a TV producer?
Right. The producer basically is the person that's in charge of the entire show. So that will be the start of the show, content of the show, the editorial line of the show. Then you've got the gallery here, so there's a range of people here. You'd have a graphics operator for all the graphics that come in, but that'll just be sort of name straps telling people who they are. Then there'll be a person called a PA, and they keep time of the show. So the show, you'll have half an hour at the top, so they'll have a range of stopwatches. So they'll have a stopwatch for the total duration of the show, for the whole half hour. Then they'll have a stopwatch on each individual section of the show. So they're just informing you all the time. You know, she'll talk to the TX operator for breaks, how long the breaks are, when we're going to breaks. She'll inform the presenter all the time. Presenter's got an earpiece in all the time, so he can hear her all the time. Then the director will look after all the cameras and also the running of the VT. So, you know, the next item up may be an interview with, you know, Andy Murray. So he'll sort of run that in, and so then mix in between via the mixing desk behind me. And then behind the scenes, you'll have people, you know, editors upstairs who are making the packages. You have a range of sort of assistant producers, they're called. So they'll be looking after making those packages. They may have gone out and done some filming. You as a producer could talk to them about what's expected from that interview, what you're trying to say within your studio, how that interview is going to sit within the studio. So they'll go out and they'll have a range of questions. So all these little things you've got to think about as a producer and as an assistant producer.
As you can see, there are a lot of people needed to make a TV show. One person Tim forgot to mention is the sound engineer. They sit in a soundproof room separate from the rest of the gallery crew and are responsible for microphone levels, sound effects, and music throughout the show. So there you have it, the basics of an outside broadcast. Let's recap over some of the points we've learnt today. The definition of an outside broadcast is the production of a television or radio program from outside of the studio. It is most commonly used when covering news stories or live sports and music events. In order for a successful outside broadcast, there needs to be an outside broadcast truck for the gallery crew. This crew will consist of a producer who manages the running of the show, a director who manages the cameras and shots, a PA who keeps the timings, a graphics operator who makes name straps, and a sound engineer who ensures all sound is okay. Also needed is an S&G truck for uplinking the signal, a generator to power the trucks, an MCR and the TV station to downlink and uplink signals, and a transmission suite so the commercials and graphics can be added. Well, that's it for today. Thanks to our three professionals for their insight on the subject. We'll see you.
Yeah, obviously, it's TV oriented, which I thought was because TV is so much more complicated. Definitely covers like a larger aspect, a lot more details. I find that it's more relevant as well, just to get a big idea, because a bigger and more clearer idea in terms of like how outside broadcasts actually sit and work. You can go on YouTube a number, like, and look, it's endless amounts of videos, and you can actually just say, okay, listen, like, let me go, you know, let me go look at a particular, like, let's say a 947 outside broadcast or a Metro FM outside broadcast, and go see how that actually looks like, maybe. So it won't take you through, obviously, the steps, etc. Here it is, but it definitely will show you, like, what it looks like. And I know you've obviously come across an outside broadcast yourself as well. Okay, all right. So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna start my, ah, sorry, I'm just clicking on buttons that I shouldn't be clicking on. Okay, let's quickly look at the newsroom, and I am going to then end with a short video on what the newsroom is all about, right? But the newsroom, just like we can also just maybe the segue or the reason why it's grouped together in this particular lesson is to note that obviously, like our part, many parts of our news is quote unquote it's on the road, right? So we definitely have a number of different news, like reporters, field reporters, etc., etc. Obviously phoning in, well, let's say reporting live from a certain location or from a certain event or from a certain, obviously, like origin or core of a news story itself. But here is just like, let's just have a look at the makeup of a newsroom. So we obviously have our news sources, right? Just so the sources itself can or do include public news, which is received through listeners who believe that their local station should know about various community events. So that's like we've got, let's say, this great flea market, or there is a rally going on, or there is a petition going on, or this and that, whatever it is. Doesn't always have to be politically like fired or whatever it is. At the end of the day, can be anything. Public news, official news obviously comes out from predominantly government sources, right? But we also have, what is that? I think we have Reuters still. I think we do have Reuters that provide a good database for all stations that do pay for the service to be able to, kind of draw specifically community stations that might be struggling with resources in terms of news presenters that which doesn't make sense to me anyway, but I have seen enough stations that just depend purely on Reuters, community level based again, sorry, so that they will just pull stories from there and be on with it. Anyway, professional news involves the station's own reporters and correspondents who then obviously cover various beats or who work or as freelance stringers for the newsroom. So if we can think of, let's say station based in Joburg or Gauteng, but we have to have freelance or like on location or other provincial news reporters as well. That makes more sense. Something's happening in Cape Town or in Durban or in Free State, whatever it may be. We might have two or three or four like roaming reporters, right? Freelance reporters that will be able to cover stories that are of national importance, so important to also our audience up here in Gauteng. And you've heard it all before, like it's this person, this and this person, that's reporting from whatever the Cape Town Magistrate Court, and then it would carry on from like that. All right, commercial news is news that is derived from businesses and public relations services and departments. So the newsroom plays a vital role in ensuring accuracy and reliability of information that we obviously do receive. The news must be true all the time, no exceptions, right? So the newsroom is built on three major sectors, right? The reporter's desk, so the main reporter that is going to go to, so let's imagine, so many of the private stations would have a reporter, a main, like an anchor reporter that will both obviously they will collect stories or correlate stories, right? That is fed or are fed to them by the newsroom itself. But they will also go to studio and then go and read that out in the reader's booth as well, the bulletin desk, etc. And so we can have a look at each one of these and what they actually mean, right? The reporter's desk, right? So at some radio stations, the reporter's desk is labeled as the input section. All members of the reporter's desk will have access to the same news production software. So again, kind of think of a team that is sitting around. So sitting around that main anchor reporter that is feeding them that kind of information, that the information that they need to go and include in this bulletin, particularly that is updated every half an hour, right? Increasingly, radio reporters are using their smartphones for news production purposes. Obviously, we do use them. Like it's not increasing. We do. So you can imagine that reporters are assigned to a story around that could be long running or it needs like direct, I'm saying direct coverage. So you need to go there, interview some people, get some boxes, like get some interviews, whatever it may be, and then send that over, to the station, or like log into a specific software that does support, radio, obviously, not radio, news, broadcasting itself and use collaboration, collateral, whatever it may be, right? So the news production software, like for example, News Boss, there we go, is a new production software. There's a news production software suite that is favored by a few radio stations, while others offer the same kind of thing, ENPS, and again, Newsroom is another option there as well. The same basic software needs to be available to all newsroom journalists, whether they are copywriters, reporters, or editors, so that all the news is put into one spot, not in a messy way. It's all, like I said, it's collated with structure so that there's labels and there's obviously like a content creator's name. Like I say, field reporter this. It's allocated by here's a vox pop that I've uploaded. Here's obviously the news story that is written down, etc. And maybe there might be also like a contact person that we might have to cross over to, and have a short interview, like maybe a 2-minute interview for like live commentary or a live statement that might be important for that particular story. And then we have obviously social media. So we have our digital department, that is, I'm saying digital news department that takes care of updating those news stories on obviously our social mediums as they are released or as they are, right? Okay. So these days, radio journalists also produce news stories on Twitter, Facebook, and on other social media platforms. Ideally, Twitter XX, eh? So X is where you want to go and find information. So you'll see, obviously, you'll follow the station, you'll go to the post, it'll give you a small little like synopsis of what the post is about. And there you obviously click and you go, it'll direct you to, let's say, the station's news site. Okay, we can go and see the full story uploaded there, or you can see, obviously, maybe listen to the full broadcast snippet right from there as well. Okay, these platforms are also considered broadcast facilities because they reach many, many listeners, not only within our feeder area, but now across the quote unquote the globe. So, used in short space of time and deliver rapid coverage. So we're already seeing greater integration of social media news production into features that are currently on radio news production platforms. All right. So, what is the reporter's desk then? Regulatory requirements are that the newsroom management requires that the station reports to the authorities regarding the content of their news. So, there has to be accountability, but also we can't just willy-nilly, like I say, just decide to say things about anyone without having like a sound source. For example, I was kind of moving away from this particular statement, this particular point here. We can't just say things about a certain company without having to have gotten a statement or a quote or having them on air or whatever it may be. And then we obviously, so we report to, like the station will report to a commissions committee, that monitors and surveys, I would say, radio stations like the BCCSA or ICASA or whatever it may have been, right? So some news software programs allow for the categorization of news items. Most of them do, if not all of them will do. So as I said there, for example, you might say, like this is a field report or this is for example, it is also based on like certain categories like human interest or interview like a extra professional on political analysis or economic analysis, etc. Every radio station or journalist is expected to add sound bites to their news copy in case those sound bites are necessary for the actual news bulletin that does go out. So noise cancellation software, obviously it is obvious that every station that does want to be able to record, and you saw those devices on those roaming mics, but that particularly in that first video, because I've used that often, and any person in the station can use it, but it is used predominantly by the news, obviously the field journalists, right? There's a kind of almost, it looked like a brick, right? Very obviously so they have two bi-directional mics, right? So one for me and one for the person that I want to chat to, right? Kind of like in a cross. It's, oh man, if you need a picture, you can just go back to the video, you'll see. So that we can get clear and direct, obviously, recordings. And then obviously what it does is that it will go and record to a USB like USB stick, whatever, that you'll pull out and you'll put that in to into obviously the PC back when you're back now as a field journalist, having been somewhere, whatever it may have been. You'll come back and you'll load it up to the system. Then obviously like form not formalized, but obviously put in the correct format into that news software, right? So anyway, many news rooms have relationships with counterparts in their countries or other parts of the countries where an exchange of stories can take place. And some larger newsrooms have dedicated sound monitoring sections where journalists monitor partner services and stations like BBC or CNN. Obviously, right? We can't be out in the UK with a field reporter there. Sometimes we actually do. We actually have like I say, a field correspondent out in the US or out in the UK, but also can't think of that logistically. One person to cover the whole country? No. We will pull sound bites, we'll pull voxes, or we pull content, whatever it may be, from those sites and say BBC explains the following, blah blah blah. Right, okay. So there was their story first. The bulletin's desk, alongside the reporters section of the newsroom, lies the bulletins section. So this is sometimes referred to as the news output section, and is where obviously the copy editors, so a copy editor is someone that actually writes the final copy for the newsreader to be able to go out on air and read it word for word, right? Okay. The reader's booth is the actual little studio. It's like a mini independent studio away from the actual so the main studio where their broadcaster is. Predominantly, obviously, commercial stations will have the money to do this, and so the thing is that the newsreader or news anchor will now have full control of the software, the sound bites, the mic, the little mini desk as well, and all that happens is we switch on that particular channel that now is linked to that little mini studio, and the newsreader will now do the rest. In community stations, we as the DJs will control, like when everything is played. We need to know the cues from we will obviously have the bulletin sent to us as well, so we know where the cues are to place snippets of boxes or whatever it may be, right? And we will control that because, again, it's a lot of money to go and expect a community station to have its own news booth, all right? Okay. In many cases, the newsreader will read from a soundproof booth and will read off the screen from the same software used by the reporters to generate the news. Often, those newsreaders may not have the rights to change the copy that has been cleared by or for the broadcast, right? So again, as saying, privatized stations, we have EWN, for example, they do have that. The anchor is in full control. So they are the authority amongst the team under the news editor. And so they can do what they feel is fine. You understand? Because they are chosen to be more experienced, right? And obviously, so more experience, I would say that's a safer word to use there. All right, that is the end of the lesson there. Okay. And I just just give me a second here. Just give me a second. Let's look at a small tour from the newsroom.
Hi guys, my name's Chris. Welcome to the newsroom. I'm going to give you a very quick tour around just so you know exactly what to expect when you come to use the facilities. To get started, we've got about 35 iMacs, which you can take advantage of. We've got the full Adobe Creator Suite, so that's Premiere Pro, Audition, the full Creator Suite basically that you can use. We've also got specialist broadcast software to use basically on radio news days and TV news days. If you want to follow me, I'll show you around to the TV news set. So basically what we've got here is a full TV studio with 3 broadcast cameras with a green screen as well that allows students to use green screen for social media. It could be sports content or other entertainment news as well as weather and things like that. If you want to follow me, I'll show you the gallery area, which is where all the magic happens. So this area comprises of about 7 technical stations. So we've got a scripting station that basically that person writes the scripts, which is then prompted out onto the front of the cameras. They then control that when it's going live, so the presenters know exactly what to read. We've then got the main piece of kit, which is the vision mixer. This is what brings in all of the video and audio feeds and then sends that out to the public and streams that live if we want it to. We've got graphics. We've even got a dedicated Skype station, so it allows remote broadcasters to come back into the studio. So we could have football correspondents out at football grounds, bringing in live match reports, or it could be newsreaders actually out in the field, again bringing in live news as it breaks. We've then got a sound engineer station right at the end. So this is the TV news set. I'm going to take you through now to the radio studios and we can have a look at those. Okay, so in this area then we've got 3 radio studios that we use for radio news days. It could be for just podcasting. Basically you can use these however you wish. We've got 3 which then all feed into this monitoring area, which is where your academics can record the content and then monitor what you're actually outputting. If I show you in one of our larger studios what you can expect to see. So in this particular studio we've got 4 mics that we can use for guest speakers as well as the main presenter mic. All of the radio studios basically have full professional grade sound mixing desks, and all of the facilities here that I've covered are all covered in training, so you're not just thrown into the deep end and expected to know what to do. We cover all the elements of training, so you're going to be comfortable when you come to use them. I hope that helps, and I expect to see you soon.
Alright, and that's it for that. Alright, I'll close it off there. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Cheers.